It was really quite by chance that I happened upon information about what now seems to be the only one surviving scholarly and detailed account of the earliest ever series of concerts to have taken place in Manchester. It was more than 30 years ago when I was playing with my first Manchester-based group, Musical Offering, which I know some of you will remember. When I used to go digging around in the libraries, searching for different programmes, new repertory, different ideas. And we're talking, of course, well before YouTube, Spotify, online resources, manuscripts and library catalogues. So the reference source that I found was a centenary review called Manchester Concerts in 1744. And somehow it lay out in front of me with a complete transcript of 16 concert programmes dating from the 2nd of November 1744. The review was originally written for the Manchester Guardian. It was called the Manchester Guardian back then in the 19th century, so we're talking 1844. And then it was published several years later by the Cheetham Society. And there it was. I'd taken a book from a great stretch of journals on this shelf in the Henry Watson Library down the road from the 19th century, and it was called Collectania, relating to Manchester and its neighbourhood at various periods. Of course, I didn't realise the full significance of my discovery at that time. This report contains information which not only allows us to fill in the gaps of Manchester's musical history, but also to correct the general belief that the gentlemen's concerts were Manchester's first subscription concerts. So that belief is now completely shattered, no longer true. And although I appreciated that the concert programmes were from a whole generation before those gentlemen's concerts, I didn't have time to think about checking whether or not there was any current research into this particularly early concert activity. And luckily for us, it remains still pretty much unexposed until now. So the 19th century transcript and review. It was written by, or is written by John Harland. He was a well-known and respected local journalist, and his report is based on what he describes as a curious little manuscript book, which he felt honoured to be favoured sight of, and from which he made what seems to be faithful and complete transcript. The original curious little manuscript book is now, however, 175 years later, unfortunately lost, although I haven't totally given up hope of finding it somehow. I remember when I first read this review, homing in on one passage of what seemed to be rather a quaint, oldie-worldy text, which made me really laugh out loud. So let me quote: "If we take away the illustrious Germans, Handel and Hasse, and the Italian Corelli, what is known of the rest? Of Gimignani we have a sort of dim remembrance, partly finding him named in old novels and tales of the period. But who were Tesserini, Vivaldi, Luzinga or Alberti?" Now, to read that Vivaldi was unknown in the 19th century to such a distinguished gentleman journalist as John Harland, I mean, it's extraordinary. It still is extraordinary. But what we do know, of course, through our historical performance practice, is what an extraordinary influence fashion, as well as limited access or limited knowledge, can have. And it made me realise even more that a resistance to little-known composers doesn't really make any sense. But of course we still advertise using the big names of household today, Corelli and Handel, rather than the lesser or little-known names. Anyway, but back then I didn't recognise all of the listed pieces or composers, not as many as I would have done if I'd found the transcript today. Handel, Corelli, Vivaldi, even Gimignani, yes. I'd even heard of Hasse, the other illustrious German, but only that he'd composed a few operas. I'd heard of Tesserini, and then I found out quite quickly that there were two 18th century Baroque composers called Alberti, not just the one we know from the bass line, but also a violinist composer, Giuseppe Alberti, whose music features in the Ottoboni music collection. And that's a collection, some of you may know, is held in Manchester in the Henry Watson Music Library. It's where I was researching 30 odd years ago, and for this project, ongoing project. This music collection had belonged to Cardinal Ottoboni in Rome. And of course Handel was in Rome, and it came via Handel's librettist for the Messiah, Charles Jennens. It was brought to Aylesford in England, and then in the 1960s Sir Newman Flower bought it up and brought it up to Manchester, and it's literally just down the road. Some of you will know, and it's a real treasure, that one of the original manuscripts of Vivaldi's Four Seasons is also in this collection. And now, with the subscription series from 1744, Manchester can join the cultural centres, including Oxford, Bath, Leeds and Newcastle, who are already proud and about having their public concerts before the middle of the 18th century.